In this video, I'm going to show you how to draw a portrait from a 3/4 view. So that's kind of tilted to the side, but not completely sideways. So basically we're going to start with our proportions like usual. The head is going to kind of start out the same way as you would from a front facing. We're just going to change the angles a little bit more. So usually I do kind of like this ear shape almost, because we notice the back of the head is going to stick out a little further than the jaw. I'm going to shape this a little bit further once I get a little further along in my drawing. Alright, so once we have the basic head shape, we're going to start dividing up the proportions. So normally we would divide the head in half right in the middle. In this case, depending on the tilt of the head, our halfway point is going to be slightly curved and off to the side. And depending on how far tilted your head is, it could be way over here, it could be just slightly off center. So I'm going to do one that's kind of in the middle. And you see how I kind of curved the line a little bit? That's going to help us follow the curve of the face. Now, just like in a regular one, our eyes are going to be about halfway. The image of myself that I'm working from, my head is kind of tilted up a little bit, so it's just slightly above half. And then, depending on the tilt of your head, this angle might also be turned and not quite straight. From there we can check the nose. So my nose is a little less than half, but more than a third of the way down from my eyes. And then my mouth is kind of in the middle. So I'm just going to kind of lightly mark where those spaces are going to be. And from here I'm going to start developing my face shape. Now in the image of myself that I'm working from, I am giving myself the added challenge of drawing my glasses from this angle, so it's going to be extra fun to draw. So kind of the key thing about a 3/4 view drawing is the shape of the cheekbone and the brow bone. Now keep in mind this space up here is the top of the head, so our hair actually covers most of that and then comes off of the head a little, depending on how much body you have in your hair. Could be a lot, could be a little bit. My hair's pretty flat, so it doesn't really come off my head very far. I'm just gonna make the basic shapes. So my hair is covering most of my shoulders. I'm just going to kind of block in where the main outlines of it are. And at this point we're going to start blocking in the features. So the first thing I need to do is kind of figure out where my eyes are going to go. I'm going to make some adjustments here. Now from the angle that I am at, one of my eyes is slightly smaller than the other because this one is facing us more than this one. It's very subtle. It's not going to be a huge difference, but it's going to kind of change our proportions a little bit. I'm just going to block in my nose first to kind of give me an idea of where my eyes are going to be going. So just like I showed you in my nose video, your nose is still kind of just a variety of circular oval shapes. So I'm starting with the ball of the nose. I've got a pretty round nose, so that works for me. I'm measuring kind of the distance between the side of my face and my nose so that I don't make it too big or too far over. This nostril here is slightly covered up by the ball of the nose, so it's only going to be part of a circle. And then seeing my nostril here from the side is more of an oval and less of a circle. So it's still slightly smaller than the ball of the nose. And I'm just going to lightly block in my nostril. It's just kind of a curved shape. Really what's going to create it is the shading once we get to that. And I'm just going to check to make sure my angles are correct. One thing that's really important about portraiture, and really just any kind of realistic drawing, or drawing in general, is that you take a moment to step back every once in a while. Because if you see your drawing from far away, you might notice some problems that you don't see when you're up close. So it's really important that every once in a while you prop your stuff up and look at it from at least like 5 or 6 feet away, sometimes further if it's a bigger artwork. That's going to really help you catch any inconsistencies, or if you need to darken values or lighten values, it's going to help you figure those things out a little bit. And I'm going to add in my nose rings really lightly here. Alright, I think that'll work for a nose for right now. Then one really important thing is my glasses kind of overlap my eye. So I need to kind of figure out where those are going to go. They also get smaller as they go off to the side. So right now I'm just kind of measuring where they line up on the bottom. When I draw anything that has to be symmetrical, I always try to kind of block off where the tops and the bottoms are. That way things are going to end where I need them to end. And that goes the same, like glasses, eyes, anything that repeats itself so that it's the same. And since they're kind of at an angle, it's not going to be exactly symmetrical, but I need to just figure out where things are starting and where things are ending. So looking at the nose piece, it's about here. This kind of follows the shape of my nose. And then I'm kind of checking out the shape that the side of my glasses create along the side of my hairline as well. So I notice the frame kind of comes out here. given how long that took, we all can safely assume that glasses are challenging to draw. And it really just takes a lot of patience and checking your angles, going back and forth, making sure that you're looking at kind of the spaces that are in between. So like when I was drawing this one, I was looking at sort of the way that my face divides up the inside of the lens, and also checking like the direction that my angles go. I'm just continually going back and forth and checking my proportions, checking my angles to make sure that everything is working the way it should. And then also taking a minute every once in a while to step back and look at it from a distance to see if it does in fact look right from a distance. So now that I have these kind of blocked in, I'm going to start working on my eyes. You may have noticed that I was starting to kind of smudge with my hand over in these areas. So I've just grabbed some scrap paper and I'm just going to set it down underneath my hand, and that's going to protect the paper from my hand smudging it. This is always a really helpful tool. The main thing is you just want to make sure that you are still looking at what's underneath here and not kind of forgetting that it's there. And then you kind of ruin your proportions because you aren't paying attention to the stuff that's covered up. So just don't forget that you have drawings underneath everything. Now, when I'm starting the eye that's behind these glasses, it's really important that I keep in mind like where my lenses are covering up the eye. And I see like in this space, my nose piece of my glasses is kind of also covering up the tear duct just a little bit. I see the start of the curve of my tear duct right around here, and I see a bit of the fold of my eyelid in this area too. So it's kind of an abstracted view if we're just looking at this point. So I'm going to mostly focus on this area. So I'm going to start first by seeing where my eye lines up in accordance to the curve of my face here, as well as the lens. So where does my eyelid start? Where does it end? Now the key to drawing an eye from this angle is knowing that your eyeball itself is round. So this back half here is going to show the roundness. Like you can actually see the curve of my eyeball underneath my eyelids here. And that's kind of defined by my eyelids as they come across. You can see sort of the thickness of the lower eyelid. I'm going to kind of work on the values as I start shading more, but I just need to keep in mind that I can see sort of that waterline, if you will, around my eye. And then I can see like my lashes kind of cover this whole area here, and they come off of my face. Those lashes line up with the side of my glasses. And then I can see the eyelid on top kind of folding right about here. Sort of a crease. And when we get to the iris and pupil, it's a large chunk of it is covered by this area right here. My pupil just brushes the side of my frame of my glasses. And now it's really important when you're drawing eyes, really look at what you're seeing. So how much of your eyelid is covering your pupil or your iris. A lot of times your pupil might just be brushing the top of your eyelid. In my case, not quite so much because I think my eyes are a little bit further open. It's not often that you're going to see your entire iris. Pretty much the only time that happens is if you look real freaked out. So keep in mind that these are covered by your eyelids to some extent. Keep in mind also that your pupil is always in the center of the iris, because they're both circles. The pupil's in the center. It never moves from the center. It gets bigger and smaller, but doesn't move. And then I'm going to just block out the reflected light in the middle there. Another thing that's important to note is that you don't want to get too detailed with your facial features right away in the event that you need to move them or change them to match the other one or to be proportionate. So always draw them lightly. Don't start with your shading right away, because it's really a bummer if you get something really finished and it looks phenomenal and then you have to erase it and start over again because it's not in the right spot. So always be checking and looking to make sure that things are going the way you want them to go. So now that I have this eye kind of sketched out, I'm going to move on to the next one. So I'm going to start by kind of drawing some lines straight across. I'm checking my angles, so I notice my irises are kind of at an angle. I make note of where my eye is in relation to other parts that I'm seeing. So I got my nose piece, it kind of lines up with this one. It doesn't quite line up with this edge of the glasses. And then I notice there's a little bit of space between the nose piece and then my tear duct. So I'm just going to make a little mark here. And then my eye ends a little bit before the end of the frame here. I'm going to check the angle again, see if it's straight across or if it's kind of tilted. I notice the crease of my eyelid just brushes the top of my lens here. So I'm just kind of going back and forth and almost carving this eye. I'm shaping it as I look at it. Alright, so we're going to move on to the mouth. So I've kind of drawn just a basic line for around where the middle of my mouth would be. I'm going to kind of look at the philtrum, that's that little divot right here, and just basically figure out where the top of my mouth is going to be by following the philtrum down my face. So I've got just the little divot at the top of my lips, and I'm going to move this line up just a little bit because my upper lip is not that big. And so it's kind of flat in the middle and then curves downward just a little bit. And it ends just outside of my nostril, which also kind of lines up with my tear duct from this angle. So right about here. And then this way is quite a bit shorter because it's at an angle. My upper lip kind of sticks out a little further than my lower lip from this angle. And I'm really just kind of checking to see how much space I have between my lips and the side of my cheek. And it's not very much. There's a slight little curve here where my upper lip ends. And then my lower lip kind of sticks out Now revisiting this part of my face, I notice my chin goes back way too far, so I need to kind of change the shape of my chin. Otherwise it looks like I don't have a chin, which is kind of goofy. Alright, so I've got everything kind of blocked in where I want it, so that just leaves me with shading. Stay tuned for the next installment. Thanks for watching.